what you have to remember about thoughts and sleep is that anything that you've learned that's come into your brain during the day needs to be processed and consolidated during sleep.
Mm.
And it's going to happen. So if you want all those negative things to not intrude and infiltrate your mind, you need to process them while you're awake. So I don't suggest doing that. My journaling at night before bed, for me, I'm a list taker. I'm always like, oh, am I going to forget this to get this tomorrow or this meeting? So part of my journaling is my to-do list,
Right.
getting out the negative stuff earlier in the day. So you get it out, but it's not what you're thinking about when you're going to sleep. With children, I always say you have to schedule talk time with kids because as a dad, you know this, right? They don't tell you anything bad that happened during the day and you go to tuck them in at night and all of a sudden it's my teacher said this and my friend did this and I have a project tomorrow and all the, right? They have
That's
to
good.
you have to give them time and you don't want to ignore it, but you don't want to feed into that right before bed.
What if aging isn't about slowing down, but leveling up? I'm Dr. Isaac Jones. This is the Longevity Leaders Podcast.
Hey there, I'm Dr. Isaac Jones. I'm here with Dr. Whitney Roban, who is a sleep expert. And she's not just a theoretical sleep expert. She's a sleep expert that is actually boots on the ground, clinically proven, to create systems and strategies that will help you get deeper, more rejuvenating sleep. So, Dr. Whitney, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Now, I would love to know, the first question, which is like, what got you into this in the first place, into health, into longevity, and what's kind of created this possession that you have over sleep optimization?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this question because, it's the first time I always get to talk right about my children, but also a big event that happened that we all experienced with 9/11. So it's interestingly enough, I found out on 9/11 that I was pregnant with my first child. And I was living in New York City on that day. And the company that I was working for was a very large nonprofit, and they had offered me something during maternity leave, which was called flex time. Now we know it as hybrid working, but back then in 2001, nobody really did that kind of work. And I was very excited to take that opportunity because I was a new mom. However, after 9/11, the CEO of our company went over to the Red Cross to help with the 9/11 relief efforts. And they called me while I was on leave and they said, unfortunately, we're restructuring and you have to come back 5 days in the office or nothing. And I looked at my little newborn son and I said, okay, I think I'm going to choose nothing. And I found myself as a stay-at-home mom, which wasn't the plan, and a child who didn't sleep.
Wow.
And that literally changed everything for me. And 20 years later, here I am still working in the field of sleep, helping people of all ages to get better sleep.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, what it's like sometimes challenges end up being blessings in a way, right? Like that help us
Absolutely.
to become, experts in our field in certain ways. And tell me, like, what were some of the challenges or obstacles or setbacks in your journey that that you did, and how did you get that you had, and how did you get through those?
Yeah, it's interesting. The field of sleep has changed so much. So this might resonate with other people in the field of sleep if they're listening. I started doing this 20 years ago, and there were just a handful of us really working, like you said, boots on the ground, helping people
Yeah.
sleep. And I really focused then on helping moms and dads of children sleep because I had my own children at the time too. And years later, some other sleep professionals started this online certification training to become what they call like pediatric sleep consultants. I'm sure you've heard of that. You're a parent of 4 kids. And it just became something that every mom on the street was getting this online certification. And the field became inundated. So it went from a few of us to a lot of us. And I said, okay, entrepreneur now, what can I do to do something a little different than everybody else is doing? My kids were a little bit older. And I have this part of my brain that's a creative brain that not many psychologists have. what I realized is there's so many books out there for parents to teach their kids to sleep, but nobody was talking directly to the children.
Mhm.
And so before I was working as a psychologist, I was creating sleep games and books for teachers and therapists. So I kind of had a little bit of experience in the publishing world. So I wrote a couple of children's books about the importance of sleep. First one being called Devin and Evan Sleep from 8 to 7.
Oh, nice.
That it's a very colorful book, and it rhymes, and it uses real life situations that kids experience to explain to them why sleep is so important on their level. And it was a big success. So I wrote a follow-up book called Devin and Evan Play Fortnite Till 11, because at that time it was the Fortnite craze. And I happened to have caught
Yeah.
my own kids who were great sleepers playing Fortnite when they should have been sleeping. So I took the opportunity to have a challenge, which is, okay, what else can I do with my experience working with kids? And I wrote these children's books. I started going into schools and reading them to the kids, and I could
Mhm.
not believe how excited they got and how much they wanted to tell me how badly they were all sleeping, and the teachers couldn't
Oh,
believe.
really? The
Yeah,
the children were sleeping bad? Is that something that you're hearing as well? Like in
100%. I mean, in like a third grade class, you'd say, how many of you have a bedtime? And no children would raise their hands. And you'd say, well, how many of you have trouble falling asleep? And all their little hands would go up. And they just wanted to ask, how do I get better sleep? And, my parents keep the lights on at night when I'm trying to sleep in their lab. I heard so many great, interesting stories. And the teacher said, we need to teach this in class because sleep is so important. So then I went and I wrote an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school sleep curriculum, the first ever to be used in schools to teach children sleep. They teach them nutrition and they teach them physical education, but they don't teach about sleep. And I really do believe it should be required curriculum. So I think the obstacle of not just staying with my private practice allowed me to touch back on my creativity side and created these books and this curriculum. And then I started working with the parents to get there. They would say to me, okay, help me, my kid get to sleep. Now, can you help me? Can you help my older children? And my practice ended up being from babies through adults. And still to this day, not that many people work with older kids and with adults. So that's really been, a great part of my private practice.
and what are do you know the statistics around the number of people that are struggling with sleep, number of children that are struggling with sleep? Like, what are we talking about here? What percentage of population is are people dealing with this?
Yeah, well, it's hard to know with kids because parents have a bad um, judgment of how well or poorly their kids are sleeping. But we know with teens, about 70% of teens do not get the sleep they need. I mean, they are notoriously bad sleepers, and college
Wow.
students as well. So really the whole first step is just getting them to understand the significance of the importance of sleep. I just actually did a post today before I came on your podcast, and it was back to school. The best way to start your journey towards academic success is getting good sleep. And that's oftentimes left out in the advice.
Absolutely. We'll get into that a little bit later and use how, sleep impacts your brain, your
Yeah.
memory, some of these other things, but
Mhm.
uh, your hormone regulation,
Yeah.
it's essential for detoxification,
Yeah.
for all of these different things. But
Yeah.
If you're a medical doctor, nurse practitioner, chiropractor, or other health expert that's stuck in a broken system, there's a better way. The Freedom webinar shows you a proven 5-step system to build a 7-figure virtual health practice, or how to modernize your current brick and mortar practice without the burnout. Learn to create high-ticket programs, automated income, residual revenue, and attract clients ready to work with you. Book your $1 million strategy session today by clicking the link in the description.
Literally everything, right, Isaac? Like
Yeah.
every body process that goes on is somehow affected by sleep. There's really nothing else in the world that can do that. That is so powerful. Sleep is one of the most powerful things we can do, and it's often pushed to the side. So, just for people to
Yeah.
understand the impact it could have on everything from head to toe, I often describe sleep as like a big umbrella when you go out into a rainstorm and you need that umbrella to protect you from head to toe, that's what sleep does. It's a protection. It's the best health insurance we could ever have. And it could be
Wow.
free if you know how to do it. It doesn't really
Yeah,
cost
yeah, yeah.
anything,
People are paying for sleep now, so
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
good. Well, let's. There's a lot of people here that are very interested in longevity, and I would love for you to just define what do you feel like longevity is, and like how is it that you've implemented longevity into your own life, and how do you do it personally?
Mhm. But I really think I talk about sleeping the foundation of wellness, like they talk about diet and exercise, and it's like the trifecta, but sleep's just one notch above. And it really is the foundation of longevity as well. Just as we were just saying, and you were pointing out all the things that sleep can affect positively or negatively from let's talk so I'm a psychologist, let's talk about the mental health aspect, right? Which is just as important as our physical health. It affects our anxiety, our serotonin levels, our dopamine levels, our cortisol levels. And what does high cortisol do? It increases
Stress.
inflammation, right? Stress and then inflammation, which is the cause of all serious diseases. So, in order to keep inflammation down, of course, it's eating and eating anti inflammatory foods. But a lot of people don't realize how much sleep affects our stress levels and our cortisol levels. So, that from a mental health perspective. And then, just go down the body and you think how it protects our cognition for Alzheimer's, right? There's so much research out there about sleep and Alzheimer's that it flushes out the toxins that cause Alzheimer's. And then you go to your heart and it protects your cardiovascular. It regulates your blood pressure, hormones. Practically every hormone is our hunger hormones, our testosterone, estrogen. A lot of talk about women and perimenopause and menopause with sleep. It's the second most highest complaint after night sweats, but a lot of the night sweats also happen because of sleep. So, and then just continue going down the body. So, when I work with hotels and spas and they bring in wellness programs, I always say if sleep's not a component, you're doing it wrong or you're in the wrong business. And I say that too about longevity and all these new longevity centers popping up. You cannot talk about longevity without sleep because poor
Oh my
sleep
God.
ultimately over time can affect one of those body processes that you need to stay healthy.
Wow. Absolutely. Yeah, and honestly, like it's so to me that the whole hospitality industry around quote unquote longevity
Mhm.
is just not people don't really get it. They call their resort a longevity resort or a wellness resort,
Mhm.
and they don't get wellness or longevity. They don't have the tools. They don't, you walk into a hotel room and they've got volatile organic compound based mattresses and all these petrochemicals in their materials and unfiltered water and all of the things. And how are you supposed to get a good sleep in those types of environments, right?
Absolutely.
So I think sleep is so critical and paramount in the development of these businesses and which is why I'm so focused on it and I'm connecting with you obviously and we'll probably have a lot more exciting conversations
Mhm.
um and integrations of what your science has shown
Mhm.
but that is I think why I'm so passionate about building, this new brand Centagio because of, the need for this in the marketplace. And I'll go to these different resorts around the world, and there's some of them that are great. But there's such a lack of true wellness and longevity that I'm just like, wow, it's just wide open.
Yeah, I
So
agree. And I also think that a lot of it is focused on their marketing and not on programming,
yeah,
right? So, what I read and my focus always is zooming in on the sleep component. And it's always they focus on the greatest tech because that has the biggest wow factor.
yeah, yeah,
But what they don't realize, and this is for me spending my career truly wanting to help people, right? This is about getting sleep better so you can sleep better. A bed is not going to do it. A red light therapy is not going to do it. Those are adjuncts. Yes, you need a good mattress. Yes, red light therapy can definitely help, but you have to learn how to sleep. And they're forgetting that aspect because that's not as sexy as having the room set up with the greatest, that they can find. And a lot of times these companies call me and it's not the wellness departments that are asking for my help. It's the marketing teams that are asking for my help. Interesting.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Mhm.
Well, what are some of the biggest like challenges or mindset shifts or routines that or maybe even inner beliefs that have helped you stay grounded as you're moving forward and and really helped you build what you've built today?
Mhm. Well, I think at the foundation of it, I really owe a lot of who I am and how I function in business to my dad, who's now past 13 years, but he was an entrepreneur himself. And one thing I noticed about him is he always believed there's a solution to every problem. And if you go in thinking that there's a solution, you're going to find one. And that's how you stay calm. And people have often asked me, I mean, I was a single mom raising kids alone and growing my business. And people always said, how are you so calm? I don't drink much. I don't do any drugs. Like, how do you handle your anxiety and stress? And it's that's the mentality of we're gonna figure this out. There's always gonna be a solution, right? But also the fact that I'm a sleep expert, so at night when I would put my kids down and the workday would be over, I knew that everybody was in their bedrooms and sleeping through the night, myself too. And so you start the day breathing and stretching and making sure your levels are low, but then at night you get the sleep that you need to rejuvenate. And I think that that's just critical in everything. You see, I'm going to be able to weave sleep into every single question you ask
No, I love
you ask me. But there's always going to be obstacles. The other thing is the wonderful thing about sleep. And again, I've been doing this for 20 years. When I first started, nobody wanted to listen to me, right? Sleep was not a topic that anybody truly cared about. And I was screaming it from the rooftops and nobody wanted to hear. My job has gotten a lot easier because sleep is such a big deal now, right? It's having its time on the world stage. I'm on the world stage with it on podcasts like yours. Being able to talk about something I've known for so long is so important. So, with all the obstacles and the changes, it has allowed me to really be an entrepreneur and sleep. I always just thought I have a private practice and that would be it. I'm a PhD psychologist. What else really do we do, right? But now that
right.
I'm able to work in spas and hotels with longevity centers, wellness real estate, writing books and curriculums, it's beyond my wildest imagination what I pictured being able to do. So there's been a little bit of luck in that as well, that I chose a field that was obscure, but now it's, a $500 billion industry, so they said.
That's so good. Now we'll get into brass tacks here in a second, but I was wondering if there was any kind of like personal failure or challenge that you had that kind of created the ability for you to grow to where you are right now.
Mhm. I mean, I've been very lucky in my risks that I've taken in my
Mhm.
career. They've worked out and in
Yeah.
because I'm spotting trends. But I think the greatest obstacle really was doing this as a single mom and raising kids by myself and finding the time to do it all. And you just said before we got on the podcast, you have 4 children running around right now as you're doing, your oxygen therapy and a podcast. So, for all the parents out there, what made me get into the field originally when I ended up is I talked about being that stay-at-home mom that I didn't expect to be and a child that didn't sleep. I knew that I would not be able to function as a parent successfully and have a thriving child without sleep. And I think
Mm.
that's really been the key to my success is every night I get into bed and I go, like, okay. I wake up and I feel good the next day. And so did my kids. And they're in their 20s, but they continue to have their focus on sleep too. So I really do believe that that's got me over a lot of the obstacles and hurdles I faced.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so like there's a lot of misunderstandings I think about sleep. There's a lot of people that that again, they think it's like the tech that they're going to use or the breathing they're going to do after, 5 glasses of alcohol. And, that's going to help them better sleep or whatever. Um, like I literally stopped drinking alcohol because I saw what it was doing to my readiness score and my deep sleep in my Oura ring. And I was like, oh my gosh, I only had 2 glasses of red wine last night. And this was years ago when I started doing more biometric tracking, and I started to see just the impact that it had on my sleep. But the other thing that I thought was so shocking was it didn't just impact me the next day, it impacted my readiness score, my energy score, I guess you could call it, for the next 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
And so I was like, whoa, like this is just 2 glasses of wine is actually like increasing a lot of challenges and decreasing my productivity. And so I was like, look, I'm not even going to entertain this, even though it was like organic, biodynamic. And so, that was a decision that I made just because I was like, whoa, this impacts my sleep at such a high level. And it may not for other people at the level that it does for me, but um, what is one of the biggest things that people understand about sleep? Um, and what do you think people should know about that?
I think that's a great point, and I'm so happy you said that. I will infrequently drink as well, and when I do, I just accept that I'm not gonna sleep well that night, and maybe it's worth it, for a celebration, we have to live, but, um, alcohol is just not sleep friendly, and it's not for me, it's not worth it. At this stage of the game, I'm more interested in getting a good night of sleep, so I'm on board with you. The number one sleep aid is alcohol, and people don't understand that it is, a depressant. And so it might make you fall asleep faster, but there's something that happens once your body metabolizes the alcohol, and there's a rebound effect, and it's going to wake you up. So people usually say, oh, they fell asleep so easily, but they still didn't have a good night's sleep. And it prevents you from going to the deep REM sleep that you need. So I think I don't know if it's a misconception. I think people might actually realize it, but it's this whole quick fix mentality. And that was a challenge for me as well. Like during COVID, when everybody's mental health was suffering and their sleep was suffering
Mm,
immensely. And then when we got out of COVID, a lot of huge companies and multi-million dollar, billion-dollar companies started getting into the sleep space. And the marketing is for that quick fix, right? And what I do is not, it's not long term, but it's not that. I'm not prescribing pills. I don't, really suggest that unless for, certain, circumstances. And there's such great research behind what's called CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And there's no side effects to it. And there's always going to be side effects to medication, even to over the counter
mm.
pills like melatonin, which we could have a whole separate podcast on. So, and the last thing I want to say just about maybe a misconception about sleep is that every night you have to have perfect sleep. And I think that
Yeah.
these sleep trackers are feeding into that. And what they have found, some research is showing that if you not wear, if you're no, don't wear your sleep tracker and you had a poor night of sleep, you might rate yourself as okay, I didn't sleep so great. But if you had a good night of sleep, but you wore a sleep tracker and they mess with it and they showed that you slept badly, you will believe that you had a bad night of sleep and it will affect you the next day. So we so believe what these rings and all these trackers are telling us, it gets into our psyche.
You
So
know what?
great is
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good. Keep going. I want to make a comment on this,
that.
but go ahead.
So, I think that we have to accept the fact that not every night is going to be great. And as I've spoken to you and I said, oh, every night I get into bed and I sleep so great and my kids do. I mean, that really is kind of a lie. But every night I'm human. Things happen.
Yeah.
The number one problem and cause of behavioral sleep problems is stress and anxiety. And no one is immune to that. We all go through times in our lives where that is going to defeat us. Stress and anxiety is going to overpower our brain and our body, and we're not going to have good sleep. But the difference is in how we handle it. So, number one, when I go into schools and I ask teenagers or I ask adults when I do corporate workshops, what's the number one thing you do when you can't sleep at night? You know what the answer is? Well, besides going on your phone. But after that, they say nothing. People just don't know how
Yeah.
to fix their sleep and how to get back to sleep. And that's the key. And even if the stress and anxiety is at a level where everything you know, the deep breathing and the relaxation, and you should get out of bed and go to your sleep oasis and all these things we work on, maybe it's just not going to work that night. You know what? It's okay because we're all human and you will survive that night. And the next night, your sleep drive is going to be so strong that you will have most likely, a much easier time that night getting to sleep. So even sleep experts don't sleep perfect.
Oh, that's good. I have a follow-up question for that, which is, can you catch up on sleep? But before I do that, before you answer that question, I want to comment on this wearable. Like I've worn Garmin watch, Apple Watch, Whoop band, Oura ring, etc. That's the Oura ring is what I use right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a very important distinction that you made that I like came to the conclusion of like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in that I literally lived and died by the scores that I would have.
Right.
And do you know what ended up happening was I got to the point where when I knew that I went to bed late at night, or I stayed up with my friends, or I was reading a book late at night, or whatever it was, and I knew my sleep score was not going to be good the next day, I just would not look at all or let my ring
Mm-hmm.
upload, because I was like, this is impacting me psychologically more than I'd like.
Right.
And to hear that, confirmed by
Yeah.
that research is so fascinating. And I think that it can be useful. It can be helpful for some people. I think they should only use it a season of time because of their psychology around the ring.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know that this isn't the end all and be all.
Right.
And this isn't something that I let control me. I control it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Love that.
that's where I look at it. And, I'll probably, right now, I probably look at data maybe 50% of the year. And the other 50%, I'll have it on, but I just either won't upload or whatever. And if I go on vacation, I'm not bringing the ring with me. You know what I'm saying?
You have a very healthy relationship with your ring or with your wearable, and which is great. And most people just don't. I say they're not bad. All that stuff is a great adjunct to an okay sleeper or somebody who's having maybe a little trouble and is ready to take that information and do something with it. But otherwise, for really poor sleepers or like insomniacs, clinical people have clinical insomnia, it mocks you, right? Like, you didn't sleep well. You don't have to look and say, yeah, you did it, and all day long you could see that number. We don't need, we know the bottom line is, how do you feel the next day? Can you function? Are you getting the sleep you need? What can you do differently?
Right, right. So talk about some of your top recommendations, right? You've got one of them you said was clinical psychology. I'd love for you to double click in that and tell us like why is clinical psychology great for sleep?
Mhm.
The other is I would love to just know what you would say the best kind of rhythm is for being able to get into good sleep, and maybe what your routine in the day looks like around
Mhm.
that.
Sure. When people ask me that, it's funny because it sounds like kind of nothing to me, but I guess it is a commitment, right? And I'll talk about how you get to that commitment. So I think it's what I do all throughout the day doesn't seem like a lot. You don't have to do everything, and they're all small steps. And even if you do one step, you're one step closer to getting better sleep. So I wake up in the morning, I immediately get on my yoga mat, I do my breathing and my stretching. That's how I start my day. Drink a glass of water to hydrate. Get outside, get some sunshine. Yes, Dr. Huberman talks about that all the time, and it does work. Air and sunshine is really important to restart your day. And I do a morning journal. And then I personally I do a 3-mile walk every morning. If I can outside, if not on my treadmill. And that's how I get my day going. And throughout the day, I don't recommend this for everybody, but I intermittent fast because that helps me with my sleep. Different for
Mm.
everybody, trying to stay away from heavy foods and sugary foods and all that stuff.
Now, do you
Like,
reverse intermittent fast or do you intermittent fast like morning meals?
yeah, I try to eat between 12 and 8 is what
Okay, great.
I try to do. And I do not drink any caffeine. So again, I don't need it. I love coffee, but I drink decaf.
On that, like,
Yeah.
I've noticed that even if I drink decaf, like, I have the
Mhm.
CYP gene, which is the caffeine sensitive gene,
Mhm.
but when I drink even decaf, I'll get a bad sleep at night. What is up with that? Is it
Well, everybody has, it has different sensitivities to it. So you just have to know what's good for you. I'd say if you're going to do that, like the recommendations for caffeine is to cut it off before the afternoon. So I'm not against caffeine, and I actually think there's a lot of good things for it. Not maybe for somebody like you, but I just particularly don't like it. I don't need it. I don't like my heart races from caffeine, so this just not for me. But if people are going to do it, it's something that you should stick to the morning, not the afternoon. Again, we talked about alcohol, not really much part of my life anymore, sporadically. And in the afternoon, late afternoon, I try to get in another workout. So, I start in the morning, I work during the day, and then I do another walk on my treadmill or outside. One of the great things also, besides getting sunlight in the morning, is to try to be outside at sunset, at dusk. And that's letting your body know also that now it's time to be winding down. So when the weather permits, it's really good to be outside during that time. I like to take hot showers at night. A lot of people do not know this, but not only is it relaxing for me, but what happens when you get out of a hot shower, your body temperature goes up in the shower and then it has to drop. And that is actually what the body needs to start producing naturally melatonin. So instead of taking a melatonin gummy, there's things you can do to make your body produce melatonin naturally, and that's lowering your body temperature. It needs to get lowered by like 2 degrees in order to start producing the melatonin. I journal and I go ahead.
with just on the melatonin
Yeah.
there, do you have issues with, people taking, 5, 10 milligrams of melatonin before bed?
Yeah, so melatonin was actually first used for shift workers and for jet lag. And those are two situations where I would recommend it. It's also been found helpful for children with ASD on the autism spectrum disorder. So there are times when melatonin can and maybe even should be used. However, there's not research. It wasn't meant to be used long term. So there's really not a lot of research to show whether it is safe long term. Short term, they have found it is safe. So if you're taking it, I always say don't get scared. They're not showing that it is unsafe. Anything over 3 milligrams, researchers show that you start to have side effects like headaches, nausea, anxiety, and very vivid dreams and nightmares. And so many people, I can't tell you when I say this, well, that's why I've been having those crazy dreams and nightmares.
Yeah.
And they're taking a lot more than 3 milligrams. Your body also gets used to it, it acclimates. So then you're going to have to get up to the 10 and more milligrams. It was not meant to be taken like that. The scientists that study melatonin have found that it's because it's not FDA regulated, that the labels are different than what's actually in it. So they're finding that there's sometimes 0% melatonin. So you think you're taking it, you're not, which maybe would have a placebo effect, up to
Right.
400 times the amount of melatonin. And they've
Wow.
also found that some brands have serotonin in it, THC in it, CBD in it. So you really have to be careful because it's unregulated that you don't actually know what's getting into it. So especially for children, there have been a few studies that have shown that it could potentially affect puberty. So why would you do it? People are giving babies melatonin. There's so many things you could do. A lot of if it's not a medical issue, it's behavioral, and parents just need to learn how to get
Wow.
kids to sleep and not start with the pills. And for kids taking gummies and stuff, then they start to think, well, I need to take something in order to sleep. And that could be a rocky road as to what children and teens try after they, find that melatonin is unhelping. And melatonin actually is just a sleep schedule regulator. It also is not, it doesn't sedate you. It doesn't make you fall asleep faster. They actually found that melatonin only helps you fall asleep between 4 to 7 minutes quicker. So for 4 to 7
Right.
minutes, is it really worth a potential long-term side effect that we're unaware of? I don't think so.
Interesting. Wow.
Mm.
And does it block puberty in children? Is that what
There's yeah,
happens?
well, they're saying that it can cause, issues with because it's related to the sex hormones.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So not a lot of research on that, but if there's the possibility, again, always you talk to your doctor. Sometimes like kids on the autism spectrum, their benefits might outweigh any of the risks. So we're learning more now that the increase in melatonin since COVID, it's skyrocketed so much.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more research to come on
Sure.
melatonin. Yeah, but there are appropriate ways to take it and times to take it. But again, I try and myself and
Yeah.
I didn't do anything for me. So I like to
Yeah.
suggest things that I've tried and what works for me. And melatonin just didn't work for me, and I'm happy it didn't.
That's good. No, sorry to derail you from
Eh?
your kind of checklist of things that we should be doing, but I just wanted to look into what your thoughts were on melatonin,
Yeah.
and we can talk about supplements like L-theanine and GABA and stuff later. But talk to me about continue your thought
Right.
process around
My
yeah.
day,
Yeah.
everything is focused on sleep. And then, yeah, so taking a shower, doing, whole skincare routine, and I do my nighttime journal. And I think journaling is probably one of my most favorite suggestions for people. As a psychologist, what happens is we have all these thoughts and things that happen during the day, but we're busy and we don't have time to process. And if you do not process, those thoughts are going to come back exactly when you don't want them, when you're trying to fall asleep or when you, for some reason, wake up in the middle of the night. And that's not the time that you want to sit and first process. So getting those thoughts out in a
Mm.
journal and getting them on paper will make sure that when you're trying to fall asleep or get back to sleep, you've processed and they're not going to intrude. So journaling is one of my most favorite easy tasks. And, it could be a checklist of things that you do during the day. So you're being held accountable to your behaviors for sleep. So I'm a big proponent of journaling. And then I do my yoga stretching again, legs up the wall, the room, turn the temperature down to 68 degrees, sometimes even lower. Um, get my pillow spray, my lavender pillow spray. I have my sleep mask ready beside me in case I need it. Get into bed, do my deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and hopefully fall asleep easily.
That's great.
Yeah.
When do you use your sleep mask?
I usually it's interesting again about what I do and don't do. There was a time when my kids were still living in the house and they were, older teenagers and up at night and I needed there were lights on. So I was starting to use earplugs and a sleep mask to sleep. And it was very, very effective. Now that my kids are out of the house and I kind of control the whole home environment, I don't really feel I need it. But it's so interesting because what would happen is I found this amazing sleep mask that when I would put it on, if I woke up in the middle of the night, within like a minute, I would fall back to sleep. Now, once you know something is helpful, like these cognitive restructuring games that I teach people, if you have a breathing practice that you use, the next time you're going to use them, they're going to work faster because you have this like in your arsenal. Like, okay, so it would be amazing. It was like a Pavlovian response. The second I put on the mask, my whole body calmed down and I was able to go to sleep. So I keep it by my nightstand. I don't fall asleep with it anymore. But if I were to wake up in the middle of the night, the first thing I'll do is put it on because it just is a natural relaxation mechanism for me. And I recommend it to a lot of people too, something as simple as an eye mask. And it really can change things for some people.
Wow, that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that there are certain triggers for me that help me go to sleep. Like one of them is stretching before bed.
Yeah.
And the other, I know that some people wouldn't do this because it may not be relaxing for them, but
Mhm.
I love doing myofascial release with like
Uh-huh.
even the lacrosse ball or something like that,
Mhm.
which is probably painful for some people. But for me, is very relaxing because
I
I just
agree.
get in on these kind of trigger points. I deep breathe through them. But there is nuance to some of this stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
each person needs to kind of build their own, um, system, if you will.
Yes. Yes. You have to, it's trial and error. And what I always tell people is don't listen to my advice. Try it once and go, oh, she's full of it. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Give it a week. Like, these things don't happen overnight. There's these cognitive restructuring games that I teach little kids, simple, to adults. And my favorite one is a 4-letter word game. So you think of a word like stop, and then S is, silly, T is terrific. And you go through, the 4 letters, and then you start again. For children, I do the ABC game, and it's as simple as A is apple, B is ball, and that's easy for them. And I always say, if you can't think of a word, move on to the next. This is not a test. And once you get through the alphabet once, people will go, oh, it didn't work. You have to keep going. And usually the first time you might have to go through the alphabet a few times. And next thing you know, you go, oh, wait, it's morning. How did I get there? And the next time you're going to go through the alphabet a little bit less. So sometimes if I decide, oh, I'm going to do, the 4-letter word game or the alphabet game, to make the alphabet game a little more difficult for adults, I'll say theme it. So A is amazing, B is beautiful, C is cute. And I'll get up to F, G, and then it's morning. Again, kind of like the eye mask, because you're going in saying, oh, this is BS. No, you're going in saying, this is worked, and it's all up here. And that's the psychologist. That's the cognitive behavioral therapy, the training that I had in grad school as a cognitive behavioral psychologist. It's training the brain to train the body. And so when we're having some sort of anxiety reaction or sleep anxiety, your heart's racing, that's a physiological response to your thoughts. So we have to change our thoughts to change our behavior. And having those distractions, again, it sounds so silly. So much of my advice sounds like it doesn't matter, but you put it all together along with the breathing and the journaling and all that stuff, and it's just a recipe for wonderful sleep.
So if you are journaling some stressful challenges, you feel like the stress getting down on paper actually helps you get better sleep at night?
Yes, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. My wife does that so well. And I'm like, I don't even want to write down some of the things that I, experienced during the day. But you know what? I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna start journaling, the things that maybe take place throughout the day.
Yeah.
I will say that the most challenging time of my life of sleep was I had a business just completely explode and in a good way, financially in less than 2 years, it was at $12 million and growing fast. And our profit margin was very high. So we had like $7 million in the bank, something like that. And it was just, it got wired out by one of the partners. And it was done in a way that was extremely sneaky. They built all these shell companies, et cetera. And so I got into this lawsuit, of which I won. But during the 3 years of going through this lawsuit, it was, and it was supposed to be an expedited arbitration. Unfortunately, this person lived in a different country, so it had to go through the International Court of Commerce. So it was like, pulling your hair out. But then the way that it impacted your sleep was just unbelievable. And so in the past, if I could go back, I would be like, I'm not even going to touch this. I'm going to move on, focus on what you can do. Even though I won the lawsuit, I lost a lot of sleep. That was it. The key thing was the stress that impacted my sleep.
Worse.
And it started to stockpile, right? So if somebody's in a situation where they have a lot of stress, kids, whatever, what are some cognitive neurobehavioral things they can do? You shared journal, count down the alphabet. I've heard count down backwards from 100. But what are some things that might support this, or is it just those things?
I mean, there's a few things. I just want to go back to what you said about that experience that you went through, and now thinking about what I was saying to you about journaling. So what you have to remember about thoughts and sleep is that anything that you've learned that's come into your brain during the day needs to be processed and consolidated during sleep, and it's going to happen. So if you want all those negative things to not intrude and infiltrate your mind, you need to process them while you're awake. So I don't suggest doing that. My journaling at night before bed, for me, I'm a list taker. I'm always like, oh, am I going to forget this to get this tomorrow or this meeting? So part of my journaling is my to-do list.
Right.
Getting out the negative stuff earlier in the day. So you get it out, but it's not what you're thinking about when you're going to sleep. With children, I always say you have to schedule talk time with kids because as a dad, you know this, right? They don't tell you anything bad that happened during the day, and you go to tuck them in at night, and all of a sudden it's my teacher said this and my friend did this, and I have a project tomorrow, and all the right. They have
That's
to
good.
You have to give them time, and you don't want to ignore it, but you don't want to feed into that right before bed. So
Wow.
giving kids journal or talk time or older kids journals where they can get it out, so those feelings out, is a fantastic thing to do. So I think people are scared of those thoughts, but they're going to creep in whether you like it or not. So it's better to get it out earlier rather than at night. And then
For sure.
those things I was talking about are all cognitive, but then there's the behavioral component, and that's the deep breathing. And many years ago, I took up yoga and I learned how to breathe and pranayama breathing and all that, and 4-7-8 breathing, and that really was life changing for me too, not just for sleep. But if I'm giving a presentation to hundreds of people, I'm excited but a little nervous, and I feel shallow breaths, and that has taught me how to breathe slower and deeper, and it must calm you down because it's literally helping your parasympathetic nervous system, right? You're slowing it down. So learning how to slow your thoughts, learning how to slow your breath and your heart rate are all really important components to just stress in general, but sleep. And that's why I think that even if you don't have trouble with sleep, but everybody has issues with stress,
Yeah.
seeing a cognitive behavioral psychologist or any practice, or even doing some of those meditation apps and those breathing apps, or online, it doesn't have to be a psychologist, but any program app out there that's going to teach you how to breathe better and restructure your thoughts, we could all benefit from any kind of longevity health standpoint along with sleep.
Wow, that's so good. And it's such a missed, like, one of the things I've really appreciated about this interview is there is so many kind of cool technologies that are out there to help us sleep now, and visors you can wear before bed, and helmets and vibrators and all this crazy stuff. And biophotomodulation, and it's kind of like, oh, just process your thoughts before bed. It's like,
Right.
it's one of the best things you could do, right?
That's simple. Again, those things are sexy, and I'm not against sleep tech. I'm really not. I think it's a great adjunct. But this is what I say to um, wellness resorts and these places that are just spending so much money on all of these things, is people just have to learn how. First, so my job is the whys. Why is sleep important? Because you're not going to do any of this if you don't believe me that sleep is the most important thing we do. Um, but then the hows. And when I see that, people like me are not being brought into these wellness programming, and they're instead just bringing in the most expensive mattress and tech. Those are great, but people need to learn how to sleep. And if you want, or as a resort, a hotel, you don't want just your people, your clients, your guests to sleep well in the hotel. You want it to translate to home, right?
Yeah.
So anything you learn, you want to bring home with you, even if it's just like a day spa kind of situation. And you can't replicate those rooms. Like I don't have a personal, masseuse. Like, yeah, I love massages, but someone's not going to come in and give me a massage every night before bed. So
Right.
that can help you in de-stress, but that's not what you have to teach people, how they're going to get really good sleep when they leave your property, your spa, your longevity center. So I always say that I'm kind of the missing piece to it, right? The science is great to support it, but it's the practitioners, the people that know how to help people get better sleep. And then once you're doing better, all those things are great adjuncts. And those rings can even make you get better sleep. And the right mattress, of course, is critical. And like I said, all those modulators and machines and things you lay in and the lights and the headbands and all that stuff is good. And maybe the science is going to even get better on it. But that's not going to cure your insomnia. That's not the answer. That's the adjunct.
So if I hear you correctly, it's in more of the simple things, in that you wake up, you get sunlight, you stretch, you maintain a awareness around breath throughout the day, you keep your stress levels normalized and low, and then into the evening you get that hot shower, you're not eating a huge meal before bed, you have a nighttime routine that should ideally include breathing and maybe something spiritual. And then, you've got your journaling, right? Where you get your thoughts down. It doesn't need to take long. I assume like 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then, you spray your lavender on your pillow. You make sure everything is dark, blackout curtains. And then you ideally follow that circadian rhythm, right? Where you're going to bed at the same time, waking up
Right.
roughly the same time every day.
Right. There's other components. So the specific components of CBTI, it's not all just sleep hygiene, right? There's more specific things to it about sleep restriction, when you shouldn't be in bed a certain amount of time and getting out of bed. There's a 20/20 rule. When you don't fall asleep, you shouldn't get out of bed. And what I call is a sleep oasis to create in your room, and learning how to get yourself back to sleep, and sleep scheduling and your sleep environment, and sleep consistency is probably the most important thing with our schedule. So there's a lot of other components. It's not just the hygiene, but that's the first step. Let's fix that and see if that helps. And then you have to get into somebody who actually has insomnia. We have to actually figure out, where this is coming from, why it's happening, how long it's been around, dealing with the medications, maybe weaning off medication, speaking to doctors and psychiatrists that put them on the medication, all the realistic things. Like there's ideals for sleep. And I always say I talk in ideals, and then you tell me, well, what can you actually do? Like one of the things in CBTI is this 20/20 rule. Where so it's you want your bed to be a stimulus for sleep. So you have this stimulus control issue where when most people who sleep early look at their bed and it brings up anxiety, right? When I walk into my room, I look at my bed, I go, yay, like I can't wait to get in. But for a lot of people, looking at their bed reminds them that they're not sleeping. So you have to get up out of bed, and that's a suggestion that people have a really hard time with. So go wait in the middle of the night. You want me to get up out of bed and go to a different area of my room or another room and do something else. And people don't want to do that. But laying in bed is just going to enhance this whole negative, association with poor sleep. So there are specific components and things depending on what people are going through that you're going to recommend. But really for everybody, generally, it's all these things that I do during the day. And the other important thing also is, like you said about your circadian rhythm, that's a 24-hour sleep cycle. So people think, oh, I could drink caffeine all day, work out late, eat heavy, have alcohol, but then I breathe before bed. So shouldn't I be able to fall asleep easy? Well, no, we need to focus on sleep within a 24-hour cycle. From when we wake up to when we go to sleep, everything we do is going to have a play and an effect on what happens when we actually get into bed and we're ready to fall asleep.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good. Last thing, really two things is what are your favorite supplements for sleep? I'd love to know that. And then what's next for you? What projects are you excited about, or breakthroughs are you working on right now?
Yeah, sure. So my number one favorite supplement is magnesium glycinate. That's what I take every night. There is magnesium threonate as well that's good for cognitive function. So I recommend if people want to take that as well, take that during the day, but the glycinate's good for night. And that's really the only supplement I take, not for TMI, but I'm on hormone replacement therapy. And so women who are on hormone replacement therapy take progesterone. And for me, and for many women, not all, but for many, that helps sleep so much because it actually helps you relax. So much so that I had to cut down my magnesium intake because I was like deliriously tired all day long when I started progesterone and I was taking magnesium. It was almost too much for my body. So
Wow.
I cut down my magnesium and I found the right balance for me. But yeah, again, simple is better. I don't just believe in spending all this money. So much of it just really has to do with your brain and your body. And, all those
Yeah.
other things are, if you have the money to spend, that's great and it can help. But let's get down to the basics. Let's just figure out why you're not sleeping well and use your own cognition, your own body to help you sleep. And that way, no matter where you are, you're on vacation, you're, God forbid, at a hospital for you or for a family member, you have ways to get to sleep. You don't say, oh, I need, a red light, sauna now to get to sleep. Like that's just not realistic. Like all your tools, your toolbox are all within you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All your tools and toolbox is within you. So tell us what you're working on now and where we can find more about you.
Yeah. So shocker after this, the next big project I'm working on is a sleep journal. I've been talking so much about it. I've seen a lot of sleep journals out there, but they don't do what I believe needs to be done morning and night, and everything that needs to go into that. That's how much I truly believe in it. I was going to write a third children's book, but I decided I'm going to put that off for right now and write and create this journal. And I'm very excited about it. Again, using my creative brain, and I'm continuing. I have a really big focus now. Sleep is on this global stage, and believe it or not, I was an actress as a child, and I performed off Broadway and on TV. So I'm very comfortable in front of the camera. And so in my third chapter, I talk about and work. I loved working one on one with families, and the impact was amazing. And changing people's lives is really why I became a psychologist to begin with. But now I want to get on the global stage, like sleep, and get to as many people as I can in this third chapter of life, talking about the importance of sleep, making a difference in as many people's lives as possible. And so I'm working with bigger brands as a spokesperson because I'm comfortable on camera, and with partnerships and with hotels, and always looking for the next trend, which is actually how you and I met, which we both know is wellness real estate. I see that there's a big opportunity. Like I said, you can't replicate the hotel rooms, right, in your room. And so
Right.
what good is it if you have all these fancy things in the hotel room that you come back to your room and you don't have anything like that? So what can we build in luxury real estate to better sleep? And what else can we do for, the everyday person who doesn't have all that money to make their homes conducive for sleep? And again, it's not just the bedroom, because sleep is a 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. So we have to make sure the whole house is conducive to helping us sleep better at night. So that's kind of the next trend that I'm hopping on, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, congratulations. Well, what would you have a website they can find you at?
Yeah. My website is solveoursleep.com. And Instagram is at Solve Our Sleep, everything Solve Our Sleep. And LinkedIn is Whitney Roban, PhD.
Great. Well, Whitney, thank you so much. This was such a great interview, and we went deep into a lot of different things. And one that I really appreciate is the cognitive kind of psychological element of sleep that a lot of people don't really talk about. So thank you again, and highly recommend go check her website and follow her on social. And Whitney, appreciate you showing up today.
Thank you so much. It was so fun talking to you, and
You
keep
as
sleeping
well.
more.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Our Longevity Leaders community is on mission to transform 100 million lives by 2040. If you enjoyed this show, please share this with somebody that you know, especially another doctor or physician, but also click that follow button. Until next time, stay strong and live long.